All right, Wednesday afternoon, just afternoon time. The rain is falling. It's raining, then it's snowing, then it's snowing, then it's raining. It's kind of going back and forth. I guess we're going to get a lot of rain before this thing is all over. We'll, of course, have the latest for you throughout the day and the night with the ABC 6 Weather Center, and we'll follow the storm for you. And the nice thing about the rain is that it's gone. You don't have to plow it. You don't have to look at it. It falls, and it's gone, right? It's out of here. So that's what I like about it. That's the way I like it. Mayor
Well
Jon
done.
Mitchell with us. For,
Well done. Yeah, this whole thing was planned.
How'd you like that
wasn't
for a segue, huh? So how are you, Mayor?
I am well, and yeah, I am happy that what's fallen is not piling up.
Yeah. Now, if this was 1976, you'd be here with your duck shoes on. Did you ever have duck shoes? They're like Tyroleans with yeah, Jonathan's shaking his head up and down. He knows what they are. No.
I think I had Tyroleans at one point, but
they called them Tyroleans. Now they call them work boots, right? I guess. But back then they were Tyroleans. But they had like the different color, yeah, like the plastic thing at the front.
Wasn't that right out of the preppy handbook, Barry?
Sort of, yeah. That was around my high school years. Everybody had duck shoes, right? So you'd have your duck shoes on at this point.
I think I just had sneakers that soaked up the rain really well.
So, yeah, a little bit earlier this week, we celebrated the blizzard of 78, 40th anniversry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember, have any memory of that at all?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
I remember making a big snowball.
Okay.
When you could just roll and roll and roll. Yeah, that's my lasting memory of it. I'm glad we haven't had anything quite like that.
Not quite like that, no.
Yeah. This winter thus far hasn't been too bad. But if you remember 3 years ago, in the winter of 2015, things didn't really start snowing until right at the very end of January, and then February was awful. So we still have a ways to go, but our snow budget, knock on wood, has not been blown. Has not been blown yet.
Right. No, truck days come and gone. Equipment trucks on its way to Fenway, down to JetBlue Park, and pitchers and catches report a week from today? A week from yesterday?
I still have the Super Bowl on my mind right now.
See, I get over those things right away. I just fine. We didn't win it.
I watched it again in the sped up version of it again on the NFL Network.
Yep.
It was almost like doing the post game film review to see where they went wrong. And it was a winnable game. It was a winnable game. Philadelphia played a great game. They avoided doing what a lot of teams do against the Patriots, which is to shy away and to be conservative when they get a lead. They stayed aggressive the whole game, and they played well. But the whole Malcolm Butler thing is really befuddling. Not playing, a guy that played almost every defensive snap all year long, all of a sudden in the Super Bowl is in the absence of an injury or some disciplinary issue is just really, really odd. I think that hurt them.
And we may never know.
Probably not.
Because that's the way they run their operation.
Probably not.
But the game is over. I was already putting my Patriots sweatshirts away and digging out the Red Sox sweatshirts, and because I had planned to wear a Red Sox sweatshirt. I wear hoodies all the time. I already have my Red Sox hoodie ready to go.
You are hoodless today, Barry.
Well, I'm hoodless today. Yeah.
You've got the lumberjack plaid lumberjack look going.
Kind of look, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good look for you.
But it was truck day the day after the game, so I wanted to be ready for truck.
You wanted to
just move transition,
off,
transition,
just like that.
Yeah, just like that.
Think spring.
If we had won the Super Bowl, I might have worn my, maybe my Patriots hat or something, but with my Red Sox shirt. So
I'm glad you're planning out your wardrobe so carefully.
Along the lines of my sports activities, yeah. But we can't forget the Celtics because they're doing real good.
They're doing all right. They're doing all right. Yeah.
Didn't do too good last night, but they'd won 4 in a row prior to that, so. They're still in first place.
Yeah, they're still in first place, and Cleveland is fading fast. And so, but in the NBA, there's Golden State, and then there's everybody else. So,
right.
But they've come along, and I think if there's a slim chance that Gordon Hayward will come back for the playoffs. Slim chance, but that might make a difference.
Who'd ever thought that would be possible? Right. If you saw that injury, whoever thought that'd be possible?
Yeah, the guy's leg basically snapped. In the first 5 minutes of the first game, which is after that contract.
Oops.
Yeah, no kidding.
All right. Anyway, this is not Sports Talk Radio. If you want that, that's down the dial.
I'm always happy to do sports. When we've talked sports before, we've heard about it from some of the viewers.
Right.
We have. So I want to respect. I want to
already
respect their wishes and and curtail my comments about the Super Bowl and prognostications.
I think everybody's had enough
of
it anyway. I mean, by noontime the next day, everybody's already burned out. Especially if you lose. If you win, it's different. But if you lose, it's like, okay, shut up, forget about it.
Yeah, let's move on.
You know?
Okay. So, all right, I got it out of my system.
All right. So the State Cannabis Control Commission had a little get-together yesterday out at UMass. I assume you had somebody out there, right?
Yes. I haven't heard back. We sent somebody out there, but I don't. But
they haven't found their way back yet, right?
Found their way back. Yes. But yeah, I think there have been reports in the media today of about the governor's reaction to the Cannabis Control Commission and some of the proposals coming out of there. I personally haven't gone into the nitty-gritty detail about some of the proposed regulations, but there are a couple things I'll say. So first of all, to the extent that the regulations put a thumb on the scale for retailers in I forget the term they use in the regulations, but in inner city neighborhoods, to my mind, that is just it's wrong-headed. It's we've spent a couple of generations as America has in trying to rid inner city neighborhoods of drugs, and now this they're proposing a policy that actually encourages drug use in the inner city as a means of spurring economic development. I think it's
I think that's true of the whole policy anyway, the entire law. I agree with you on that.
Yeah, so I think that's a bad idea, and I've spoken out about that, and I'll continue to do that. We will prepare a response or a submission to the commission, letting them know where New Bedford is, but I can assure you on that particular point, it's a really bad idea. The other thing is, there's a real compression of time here when the state regs go live, so they will.
It's in April, right?
Yeah, April 1st. So and the city is still waiting for these things to be finalized. So we're running out of time to react to the state. So I think it makes sense for the city council to revisit the moratorium that I proposed last year. I've proposed it again.
Well, you requested basically that the council put off any action on this for 6 months, right?
Yeah, just to hit the pause button. That's it. Let's see what the state does. And in light of what the state does, we'll come up with our own set of regulations, primarily around zoning or primarily around where the retailers can and can't go, so that we can so that this new industry, to the extent it sets up in New Bedford, does so responsibly.
So if April 1st rolls around and all of a sudden we've got to be ready for this, and I mean, is there enough time between now and then? I mean, we don't
come up with our own regulations. No, there isn't enough time,
because we don't even know what we have to work with yet.
We don't. So again, the state's really running the clock out here, and so that's why you see a lot of communities banning it outright. Or
was that another football reference? Running the clock out?
Running the clock out, yeah, sorry. I just can't help myself. Others are putting moratoria, and lots of others are putting moratoria in place, and I think you'll see more in the next few weeks. And we've proposed it. I've talked to a number of city councilors about it, and I think it's the wise idea. It's just, you hit the pause button and give yourself just enough time to go ahead and come up with a sensible set of zoning regulations, and then put them in place, and then you lift the moratorium, and then you see what happens.
So Fairhaven had a hearing earlier this week at Town Hall, public hearing, wanted people to come and wanted some input from the public as to how they want to see this go down. Is that something that we will do, or have we done at this point?
Yeah, I think there'll be opportunities for public input for sure. The city council is going to take it up in its ordinance committee. The planning board will be taking it up at some point. We can certainly, there's an opportunity for the public to speak up during public input during the public input segment of those hearings for sure. And obviously there are other ways for the public to speak up, and I encourage people to do so. I think there is a pretty broad consensus that regardless of where people stand on legalization, that the retailers shouldn't be next to sensitive sites like churches and schools and other playgrounds, and that there should be some restrictions on delivery services, right? So there's some it's been a point of discussion in these statewide hearings, whether there should be some kind of provision for on-site uses, in other words, marijuana bars in effect, or delivery services in which somebody can just call up and, like ordering Domino's pizza, just to, order up marijuana edibles. I mean, that there should be curbs on that as well. And these are all things that New Bedford's going to have to take up once the state is done coming up with its own regulations.
Mm-hmm. Now, if I recall, if you had your druthers, you'd like to see a zone, right, out Hathaway Roadway, where.
Well, I think. So it should be zoned. It should be in places that are primarily industrial, and that's what we did with the medical marijuana enterprises. So we have in the pipeline the possibility of 2 medical marijuana establishments. One is a grow facility, in other words, a factory and an indoor farm that is slated to go in the industrial park, and the other is a medical marijuana retailer that would be right by Captain Frank's on Hathaway Road. Again, another spot where there's there aren't any residences. It's right off the highway. It's mostly industrial. There's a storage facility right next door where Cinema 140 used to be. So if there's a place for something like that to go, that may be a good one.
But there's probably going to be more than just one retail establishment, right? So, I mean...
Yeah, no, I mean, there may be other parts of the city, but I mean, my own attitude is that it should be zoned in areas that are not
so you
primarily
want zoning,
residential.
You want zoning wherever this stuff goes. You don't just want a willy-nilly development. You want
No, I don't think anybody wants that. That's what I'm saying. The feedback I get from everybody is, and including people who support legalization, who supported legalization in the vote last year, is, look, these things should be properly placed. The problem they've had in Colorado is that they've gone, wherever, and that's caused problems in neighborhoods.
Yeah, well, I've seen that firsthand. I just came back from visiting my son out there, in the fall.
Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah.
You go into some of the places like Aspen,
yeah,
and
they're
it's
all
all
over the
neatly
place.
on the corners everywhere. But
Yeah.
you go into Denver, and you're right. I mean, they're right in the heart of pretty scuzzy neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And that's where you see the people hanging out. And that's where you
Right.
see the issues.
Right.
In some of the other places, it wasn't so much. But I'm just trying to wrap my brain around, if the state does say that you can have bars where people can smoke weed while they're drinking or whatever. You can't smoke cigarettes while you're.
No.
I mean, you got to go outside. So I mean, there's so do you have people go outside and smoke marijuana? Is that the thing?
Yeah, these are all questions that have to be taken up as part of the regulation. So there's a big question about on-site consumption and how that can be permitted. People can do it in their own homes right now. It's been legalized. So so the question is, well, how can you come up with a sensible set of regulations that balances the need of the right now of people to smoke it and or ingest it through other means on the one hand, and on the other hand, not having places that are become as you observed in Denver, places where people congregate and there's there are issues, especially if those places are near schools or churches or playgrounds or other sensitive sites.
What about security? I mean, I'm thinking about trucks moving around with dope coming from the.
You're worried about hijackers?
Yeah, well, I mean, seriously, and you're talking about the possibility even of maybe deliveries being made. It's something you said you oppose, but I mean that is a possibility. I mean, what about security? Does police take care of that, or I mean, how do you deal with those kind of things?
It's all on the police department. I mean, the facilities themselves have to have a security plan. And that's built into the regulations for medical marijuana. So for instance, the place out at in the industrial park, in order to get its license ultimately to grow marijuana, will have to convince the State Department of Public Health that there is a suitable security plan in place. I don't think there are big issues with that with the grow facilities, as we've talked about on the program before. Those sites are just they from the outside
look
like any other factories.
Sure.
Yeah,
but if I'm operating
secured.
Yeah, if I'm operating the Happy Bong up on Hathaway Road next to Captain Frank's.
There's a catchy name.
Yeah.
Should trademark that.
I'm kind of vulnerable, right? Sitting there because I've got a product, obviously, that certain element of society wants, and might find it.
Yeah. So, yeah. That's right. Well, it's like any other product. You know, if you have a lot of cash on hand as a store, you're vulnerable. If you have a product that has some resale value, you're vulnerable. So, yeah, there has to be proper security in place, and the police. It's asking a lot of the police department to oversee all of that.
So the council still has one more shot at an extension on the deadline on this?
Yeah, so I filed, I think it was just last week, a proposed moratorium that would just give us enough time to, sit down and produce a set of zoning regulations that will, after the state comes up with its own regulations, that will hopefully make some sense of the needs of neighborhoods and how these places can set up responsibly. And
that'll be on next week's agenda? Yeah. They meet next week.
Yeah, it'll. I'm sure it'll be kicked to the ordinance committee from there. Yep.
All right. The train, choo-choo. I guess there's a big announcement supposedly coming tomorrow about a permit being filed, at least according to Senator Montigny. I know Jean Fox was supposed to be on the program on Monday, and she canceled out. Said there's a big announcement coming up, so I want to wait and come on after the announcement's made. So I was kind of anticipating something. But
well, I think it was released. The Standard Times reported. The Standard Times reported the release statement. They quoted it at length, the press release, including my statement and the governor's press release on this. So I think it's out there. I don't think there's another press conference or some other major announcement. It's out there, and what was announced is the release of a draft environmental impact statement on. That's what
we've been reporting. Yeah.
Yeah, the Middleborough route. So so people might say, well, what's that about? Well, so these draft environmental impact statements are required steps in any major infrastructure project that has some environmental implications, right? So under federal law, under the National Environmental Protection Act, there is something called an environmental impact statement that, for a big project, spells out what, as the name implies, what the environmental impacts might be. Mm-hmm. So what's new here is that there is there's a statement specific, a more thorough statement about the Middleborough route, and it appears that there is a greater commitment to actually funding the Middleborough route, which would be a lot cheaper than the Stoughton route. As you and I have discussed any number of times, the Stoughton route is the direct route. The Middleborough route is not the direct route. My own feeling is that this is, it is probably the most realistic possibility out there now, and I support its going forward. I also hasten to add, as I've done so many times before, that this rail project is one of many things that we need, and we all need as a city and as a metropolitan area region, Greater New Bedford, need to get out of the frame of mind that this is just it's a silver bullet. Silver bullets don't build regional economies. Regional economies are built around assets like a port, like a downtown, like highways and rail and freight rail and a number of things, including airports and including rail connections to other cities. It is one of many things that we are working on to build a more vital economy here and more competitive and sustainable. So, in the big mix of things, yeah, it's probably the way to go forward. The thing that I think convinced me that it made sense is that let me see if I get this number right. Oh boy, I just looked at it a couple of days ago. The vast majority of the funding for the Middleborough route would build things that would also support the Stoughton route. In other words, there wouldn't be much duplication, right? So when the Stoughton route, and at some point, once the Middleborough route is done and running, people will start to say, well, what about that Stoughton route? And when that happens, some of it will have been built. And I think then, that's something that we should pursue. But I'll be the first one to say, look, you shouldn't consider this to be an end-all and be-all, because there's a lot more to a regional economy than a rail link to a city 60 miles away.
I don't think Stoughton's ever going to happen. I don't think the governor's seriously considering it. I don't think anybody's with the cost. That's just
Yeah, no, and I get that, and I think that is it's a fair point. It's one that you and I talked about.
Nobody should be leading the people on to think that this is going to happen, because it really, I mean, the chances of that happening, but
and you won't hear that, and you're right, and you will not hear that from me. You will not hear that from me. I don't think people. I think it should be pursued, but again, we've got, as a region, we've got to get out of the habit of just saying, if we only build a train, the train route will be all set. That's not the way.
And that's all we've heard since 1991. And I'm not pointing a finger at you, but I mean, we've heard that, and we've heard the delegation from throughout the region continue to say that this Stoughton thing, we're still pushing for the Stoughton. I don't think anybody believes that's going to happen.
So you've heard me when it comes to state spending. I push things like dredging the harbor, like building the port.
Well, that's why I asked you about this last week. I mean, why not, be the bold, fresh leader and stand up and say, you know what?
Oh, come on now.
Look,
I'm the only one who's been saying this.
I'm online last night, right, looking for a flight to Chicago.
Yeah.
Okay, so they tell me flight to Chicago with one stop in Denver.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, what the hell sense does that make? So then I start thinking about the train. We'll train to Boston, but we're going to take a turn and stop in Middleborough along the way. It's like, what's the point of it?
Yeah.
I mean, if it's going to be a dumb connection like that or a dumb plan, why even bother? Why waste $35 million?
Because some people will take it. Some people will take it. It just won't be.
But it's 7 round trips a day. Is it really going to be enough for that, to support that? To go to, maybe if I want to go to Middleborough, I don't know, but.
The train will not be filled in New Bedford. Let's just put it that way. So the ridership projections for the Middleborough route, according to MassDOT, are about 3,200 a day. So that's one-way trips. So 1,600 people would leave here, according to them. Let's just say half here, half between Fall River and Taunton, right? So about 800 people a day. And how that gets distributed between the two New Bedford stops, hard to know, but let's just say most of that is downtown. So let's say 500 a day downtown. That's not nothing. I mean, I suppose we're taking their ridership projections, which are all based on computer models that are used in other cities and other metropolitan areas. So 500 a day getting on downtown. That's not nothing. I mean,
it's not nothing, but it's a warrant $935 million.
So, but so that's ultimately the question, and it's a question of return on investment. So, of public dollars.
Just so that a politician in Boston can say, "Hey, we did this. We're the one that delivered on this. It sucks, but we're the one that delivered on it."
Yeah, well, I mean, so you'll have to ask the governor that question when you have him on the air during the campaign. But that's. To my mind, again, people should not look at this as an end-all and be-all. It's
any idea what the fare is going to be?
Things.
Has anybody mentioned how much it's going to cost? I have no idea. That's
I don't know.
No, I haven't heard anything.
I don't know.
What does it cost to go from like Freetown out to Boston? Do you know?
You mean Lakeville?
Lakeville, yeah.
Boy, I forget. It's been a while.
I know you used to take that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while since I took it.
$20 each. $20 each way, maybe.
No, it's not that much.
Not that much.
No. No, I don't know offhand with that, but you can look on the website.
Yeah, so I'm just saying when I go to
Boston,
if
you went to the MBTA website, you could find
probably find it. Yeah, I know a lot of times when I go to Boston, I drive to Braintree and take the red line in.
Yeah,
and it costs you what, $7 to park for the day and $10 for an all day Charlie pass, so $17. That's not bad,
Yeah. So, look, some people will take it. It won't be zero. It won't be nearly as many as the Stoughton route, but. It's as I've said to the lieutenant governor and the state transportation secretary, I think there should be a multimodal station built there. That what the plan right now just includes a platform at the Wales 2 station. I think we need to be moving the bus station from the downtown over there, and to combine the bus station and the train station in one. And so that's something that I've pushed for. And
shuttle to the ferry, shuttle to the airport, all of that. Yeah, it might
make
it more attractive.
You can have that. Well, so you have the bus routes there. The ferry's actually walking distance. A lot of people do walk it, but there are things that need to be sorted out, but anyway, I think it's to my mind, there's also some value in I don't want to say closure, because we're definitely not getting closure on the issue of South Coast Rail here, but there's at least a feeling that this is being tackled and that other things need to be focused on. And again, it's the stuff, to my mind, the stuff that I've been banging away at for a while: the port, the airport, spending for UMass Dartmouth and New Bedford, so forth.
All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to do that. I mean, I can't believe how much time has flown by already. We've got some folks already on the line, 508-996-0500, so we'll do some phone calls too. Stay tuned. You're listening to Midweek with the Mayor right here on WBSM. And we are back. Welcome. It's Midweek with the Mayor. Mayor Jon Mitchell with us until 1 o'clock today. Then he'll go back out there and dodge the raindrops. Coming down a little bit harder out there than they were when you got here in the first place. Can you hear? Can you hear?
Indeed, I can hear. Yep.
Okay, good. So we've got a Shannon grant coming in. Again, $330,654. Shannon grants are primarily to allow us to deal with gang-related issues.
Mm-hmm. Okay. For outreach to folks, to kids who are have gotten into the juvenile justice system usually, and who are vulnerable to gang influence. And it's a program that's worked pretty well here for a while. Unfortunately, the funding has declined over the years. So we were getting $330,000 this year. I think we had almost 400 last year, and I think over 500 the year before. So
was gang violence shrinking? Is that why the grants are shrinking?
I don't know why it's shrinking. It's not good. I mean, we think it's a program that is useful and largely successful. So less money means a diminished capacity to carry out that mission, that part of policing in New Bedford. So I would hope that we'd see more funding in that in the long run.
So what kind of activities does this fund actually? What do you do with it?
Mostly youth outreach. We work with probation officers and the folks under their charge who, have had brushes either with school discipline, but more particularly with the criminal justice system at an early age. That's the biggest thing, and as well as direct outreach during when there have been conflicts, right? So and we've seen this in New Bedford, and when in times past, especially when there has been a good deal of gang conflict, efforts to resolve conflict after something bad has happened can be critical in tamping down on further violence, right? Because you see it all the time in urban America where there's a murder and people are angry, understandably angry, and there are call for revenge, and when the revenge comes, it's usually because it's people are so worked up that they act on impulse. What a lot of the outreach workers do is to try to figure out who might mete out that revenge and talk them down. That's a really important.
So this would actually pay for positions?
It does, yeah.
Okay, how many people? I mean, 300,000 can't pay for a whole lot of people.
No, it's not that many. The city pays for some of the funding itself, so
that supplements what the city.
Yeah, I can't remember what we have in terms of an employment level in there.
Right. Deadline's coming up for applicants to apply for the superintendent's position. It's next week, I think.
Next Friday.
Thursday?
Yeah, next
Friday.
Yeah.
Got to remember that, 'cause it's the day after Valentine's Day, so we got to remember that one, right?
Yeah, Thursday, I guess.
Thursday's Valentine's Day, so the deadline for this is on Friday.
I think so. Maybe it's
the 15th anyway.
The 15th.
Today's the 7th, so.
Glad you reminded me about Valentine's Day. That's one holiday I forget every year.
Do you? How do you forget that? I mean, it's like
until the last minute, until somebody reminds me.
Well, I mean, you shop on Christmas Eve, so I mean, I can understand.
Yeah,
this.
no, I'm a creature of habit.
Yeah, you get the the $5 off chocolates the day after, right?
Yeah, I'm looking for the sales.
So a week from today is Valentine's Day. Keep that in mind. Jonathan, remind him that Valentine's Day, so keep him out of trouble. So a week from tomorrow, then, is the deadline for. Are you getting any sense at all about the interest that's out there? I mean, the company that's receiving these applications at this point, are they giving any feedback?
So I don't know for sure who's applying. I know there's interest statewide. It's hard to know how much interest there is outside of Massachusetts. We have a search firm in place that has a national reach, and we have certainly put the word out as far as wide as possible. I've certainly spent time calling, my Rolodex of contacts and the education leadership circles to get people to spread the word about the position. So, people like, the current education secretary, Jim Pizer, the new Department of Elementary and Secondary Education Director Jeff Riley, who just got hired. Some their predecessors once and twice removed, and folks in some of the nonprofits that support public education, especially up in the Boston area. And I've been just talking it up just so that people understand that the superintendent position in New Bedford is a really good opportunity for any aspiring urban superintendent.
Do we actually recruit? Are you trying to raid any school systems out there?
So I am not, so you definitely try to recruit, right? So this is not a passive exercise where you just sort of throw the job posting up and hope for the best. So, we ask the search firm to go out and find really good people and suggest to them that they apply. We ask the screening committee to do the same, to work their contacts. I will not reach out to any candidate because I don't want to undermine that process, but I'm certainly calling folks out there who are in these education leadership circles, it's all a network out there. There's a network in Massachusetts, there's a network in Rhode Island, there's a network in every state, but to let them know that to try to create a buzz around this position so that it generates interest. And I've told all of them, I said, look, if anybody wants to call me or any other school committee member and ask questions, you should feel free to do that. I'm just not going to, I'm not going to reach out to some specific superintendent and say apply here, because I think that would undermine the process.
But the search committee can do that, though, right?
And they should be, yeah. The screening committee, yeah.
Okay, so there is a meeting tonight at Roosevelt at 5:00. Public meeting for folks to, I've got it right in front of me here too, for a community input meeting for folks to go. And I guess basically what are you looking for? What do you want in a superintendent? Yeah.
No, we've had a couple of sessions. There have been focus groups inside the schools. So teachers and administrators have had an opportunity to weigh in. And we want people's ideas. We want their impressions. We want people to know that, their input matters, and it does. I mean, in the long run, the school district will succeed if there is real engagement in the community. And by that, I mean this: if everybody feels like that they own a part of the school district, that they bear some personal responsibility over the success of our schools. I think that's the communities where the schools are successful. You see that sentiment. And I think we've started to build that here in New Bedford, and we need more of that. And that means that we want people to come on out and express their opinions and tell us what their aspirations for their children are and for their community.
All right, 5 o'clock this afternoon at Roosevelt. So earlier this week, 2 vessels belonging to Carlos Rafael go to the bottom.
Mere coincidence, Barry.
You think? Stooges used to say, "Ooh, coinkydink," right?
Yeah.
So I guess there's an investigation. What do you know about it?
Well, if I knew something about a pending investigation, Barry, I'm sure I'd just come right on the radio and say, "Hey, guess what?" No, the truth is, it
just
is
between us.
Yeah, just between us. I don't know any more about it, though. It turns out, but it is being investigated by the police. Obviously, it's suspicious, and it has to be looked into. It's not, we've had vessels sink mysteriously at our docks before. It's not good, whether it's insurance fraud, whether it's done for some other reason. Sometimes it's just by accident. When 2 vessels owned by the same guy sink at the same dock on the same day, that's, I think it's fair to say that's not just a mere coincidence. And so the police are looking into it as a criminal matter, as they should.
Especially if the guy's in jail and has all kinds of
problems. It's not to say that, he wasn't, we know he wasn't there. He has an alibi, right?
Right, yeah, he's got an alibi, but he can prove it. But I mean, because of the whole case involving the owner of these vessels, I guess it makes it even doubly suspicious.
He keeps generating news one way or the other. But
were these 2 vessels active? Were they currently fishing, or were they caught up in this whole?
No, they were still fishing. One had just come in. One was, I think they both were. At least one of them was. Yeah.
All right. So the status of his fleet, though, some of his fleet is docked and some of it is allowed to still fish. Is that how it works?
So some of it has been seized by court order. There were 4 vessels that were effectively impounded. I think they're been docked in Fairhaven or docked elsewhere along our waterfront. I'm not sure, but there are 4 vessels that were impounded as a result of the forfeiture order in the criminal case, and then you have all the vessels that are part of Sector 9 that have been, because that sector has been shut down, as we've talked about in other shows. Those have to remain at the dock as well. So that's actually a larger number of vessels. I think it's maybe more than 20. I think there were like 23 vessels in that sector. So, yeah, that's a big problem, and that has to get resolved. I mean, the clock is ticking. The port is losing money every day. I've talked to captains, and they're not sure what to do. Whether they should try to get on a scalloper instead of to remain on the draggers that Carlos owned, or what. I mean, it's their livelihoods at stake, and so we're trying to continue to prod NOAA to make some kind of decision. Make a decision. This is, people's livelihoods and their families' livelihoods are hanging in the balance.
So in terms of the investigation then into the sinkings this week, would that be just a local matter, or because of the involvement of Carlos Rafael and the ownership of these boats and all of that, are the feds involved in that as well?
To my knowledge, there isn't a federal investigation, so the police are looking into it directly. If there's a federal angle there, then I'm sure we can make a referral to the FBI or to NOAA.
Any replacement for John Bullard yet?
Yeah, there is a replacement.
A permanent replacement?
There is.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm out of the loop on a lot of this stuff. So have you had a chance to speak with this replacement yet about the Sector 9 and whether or not that's a decision?
Not yet. I think we have a meeting set up. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure off the top of my head the date. He's somebody I've met before, and hopefully we'll be able to start moving that along. What they're doing right now is the sector management is and governing board are trying to figure out with NOAA what NOAA expects in the way of a governance model and procedures that will ensure an accurate count of fish in when the thing gets back up in business.
All right, let me take the second break, then we're going to get right to the calls. Stay right on the line. Your calls are right after the break, right here at 1420 WBSM. And we are back. Welcome for the what will probably be the final segment of this week's Get Together with Mayor Jon Mitchell.
The final segment.
The final segment, right?
The lightning round.
Yeah. All right, let's get to the phones. 508-996-0500. You are up first. Thanks for hanging on. Hello, you're on the air with me. Yep.
Mayor Mitchell.
Yes.
Could you tell us what happened with our relationship with Elite Airways? Something happened at your office or downtown City Hall that's forced them to take us down from the schedule.
With whom?
We're no longer on the schedule for Elite Airways.
Oh,
well, Elite had a trial run for runs to Vero Beach, and they are, this is a company that operates and does jump from one airport to another, and what we're trying to do with them is to try to get some more routes planned so that they can continue to use our airport. I think by and large this trial period worked pretty well. The planes weren't full, but they were, some people took those flights down to Vero Beach, and I think the feedback was decent.
I was told that something was done downtown that as far as advertising, and they no longer advertise us or schedule us on the flights.
Yeah, I don't think anything was done downtown. This is, we're in a process right now that's going to take a few years to make the airport a more inviting and suitable location to do commercial air service, whether it's Elite or other airlines and other airlines.
I was told that the commissioner is there at this time to patch up whatever happened.
Yeah, so
the relationship.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what you're referring to, but all I can tell you is that we're in the process right now of launching a broader business plan, a strategic plan for the airport, and what I hope will emerge from that is a plan on how to build for the long run a commercial air service and a strategic and and hopefully look at the possibility of doing freight as well, which is I think something that's untapped.
Well, I
for
hope
our
so,
region.
because that day I was there and there was a lot of important people and a lot of excited people there, and now to see it foil would be awful.
All right, we'll keep you posted on what's going on. Appreciate it, my friend. Thank you very much. You're up next with the mayor on WBSM. Good afternoon. Hello, you're on the air. All right, you're next on WBSM. Good afternoon.
Mayor?
Yeah.
I wanted to know about, down the Kilburn Mill at Clark's Cove, down Rodney French here. Of course, the sewers back up sometimes with the storms, but the sidewalk along the mill, which is the mill's being remodeled, and they're building all these spaces in it, and things are moving in. The sidewalk on there really needs to be repaved and probably raised 6 inches because the rain builds up. When the sewers back up, I guess because it's the end of the sewer line, there's more water. You have to use boots to get in there. I have an art studio in there, and there's other people. And I was just wondering if the city's going to get around to repaving that sidewalk, or if the mill's supposed to do that.
Yeah, it's a fair point. I know exactly what you're talking about, and that sidewalk definitely needs a lot of work. That building is in transition.
I slipped and fell the other day on there. I didn't get hurt or anything.
Well, that's a good thing.
But it is rough walking over. You need boots a lot of times. There's thrift stores open in there now, and I think they ought to do something about that, because that's a potential magnet in the South End for a lot of interest.
Well, no doubt about it. So there are two separate properties in that whole complex. There's the one that runs along Grit Street that we're looking at as a residential apartment building, which will be great, market rate apartments. And then, the other one is it just changed hands after decades and decades in the hands of the same family. And we hope that one will be similarly developed to where most of the artist lofts are that you're talking about. I'm sure yours is in there, and that's the main Kilburn Mill. And once there is a development plan there, then I'm sure the city's going to participate in fixing the sidewalks and improving the drainage around there. It's kind of an odd stretch of West Rodney French boulevard in the sense that if you take a look at the street, it's really wide. It's I don't know, 70 feet wide or so, and it's that way because there were, you know, trucks that were pulling up, backing into the loading docks that run along the street. You know, we're probably not going to have a use in place like that in the long run, and so the street might end up being narrowed, and there'll be, you know, a complete rebuild of the sidewalks. So it's going to happen. All I'm saying is that it'll happen. I'd like for it to happen tomorrow, but I think the most appropriate way to do it is to do it in conjunction with the redevelopment of the mill.
So keep those boots handy. It might be a little.
Yes, keep the boots handy.
All right, you're next on WBSM. Good afternoon. Hello, you're on the air.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, yep.
Hi. Mr. Mitchell, what do you know about the possibility, and I guess it's coming from the bus company, that they want to make near Fort Rodman, Porcelain Street on the west side, a cut-through for the buses from 5 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night? That's a residential street. Are we going to be put up with that?
Well, I raised that, so I know a couple of people from Portland Street have raised that concern, and I've passed it along to the SRTA director, Eric Russo, and they are looking to fix that route. There's a problem. There's some difficulty with the buses turning around down at SMass. The turning radiuses of the roadway make it somewhat difficult to do those turnarounds. But we're looking into it, and I get the the concern of the folks on Portland Street.
Mr. Mayor,
hold on. You asked me a question. You asked me a question. Now I got to finish the answer. So we're looking into it with them to try to figure out if there's a better alternative for the neighborhood.
All right, my friend, appreciate your call. Thank you very much. We are pretty much out of time. We got about a minute, and I wanted to let folks know about the Community Preservation Committee, and there are some hearings coming up on that, right, very soon?
There are. There's already been one, and I think there are one or two more to discuss the projects that have been proposed.
There's one tonight.
There is one tonight. Yeah,
yes,
there is.
One tonight.
One tonight. I think there may. Yes. So there's one tonight, and then there's another one Tuesday, both at City Hall. So people should stop by and weigh in on the projects that have been proposed. There's some really good ones. First Baptist Church, the Mariners Home, Butler's Flat Lighthouse, and the list goes on. And the more this is part of the Community Preservation Act fund that's been building up for the last couple of years, and I think it's really the start of a new day in historic preservation in New Bedford.
And this is stuff that people are paying for. I mean, a little bit of their tax money.
They should have a say in it.
So they should have a say, and they should. Yep. So tonight at 6 o'clock, and then on the 13th, which we've established is a week ago yesterday, you'll be able to do this at City Hall. And there's a whole host of projects listed for each one. Mayor, appreciate it. Thanks for coming in.
Thanright. Barry.
Stay dry out there.
Thank you.
And get over the Super Bowl. It's over now.
All right.
I want to see your Red Sox jersey next week when you get here, right?
All
right, we'll see you later. What do you think about the idea of a big parade in Washington to honor the military? The president's proposing it. What do you think? We'll talk about it after the break. Stay with us.